The looming shutdown of the Tomago aluminium smelter is a dreadful milestone in the deindustrialisation of Australia. Now, make no mistake, Rio Tinto would not have begun talks with its workforce about closing the doors in 2028 if it had not come to a considered judgment that the plant is unlikely to be economic. And if Tomago is uneconomic, pretty soon all the other heavy industrial plants currently talking to government about the need for subsidies are also likely to be uneconomic. That's the steel plant at Whyalla, the copper smelter at Mount Isa, and other smelters at Port Pirie and Hobart. By starting talks with workers today, Tomago is the canary in the coal mine. For heavy industry, Australia only has two comparative economic advantages: our access to raw materials and cheap power thanks to abundant coal. We've never had a big domestic market, and we've certainly never had competitive labour costs. And now, by making resource approvals almost impossible to get, there's less access to our raw materials. And with climate policy making electricity artificially expensive and stopping dead fossil fuel projects, that incentive to make things in Australia, well, that's gone too. This is a catastrophe for our long-term future as a serious country.
Under Labor, there have been closures of the Kwinana and Kalgoorlie smelters in WA, emergency bailouts in Hobart, Whyalla, Port Pirie and Mount Isa, and mayday calls from Bell Bay and Boyne smelters. How can Labor promise a future made in Australia when all it actually delivers is future shutdowns, future job losses and higher energy prices?
Today, Tomago Aluminium said, and I quote, "Finding competitively priced energy remains a central challenge." How can Labor promise a future made in Australia when all it can actually deliver is higher energy prices?
What's now obvious is that we're only going to keep heavy industry in Australia if it's subsidised by taxpayers. But that just makes the whole country poorer. And it's all because under Labor, we're deliberately making electricity more expensive than it should be to meet ridiculous net zero targets. At least we can be grateful, I suppose, that Tomago has belled the cat before Friday, giving the coalition all the evidence it needs that it must reject net zero before it's too late, and to start to educate Australians about what's really at stake if we pursue policy that's killing us economically while doing absolutely nothing for global emissions. Today too, we learned that the government was warned about this right after the election. Thanks to diligent pursuit of the incoming minister's brief that's prepared after every election, we now know that the Albanese government was officially advised in May that electricity prices would continue their relentless rise, largely thanks to an emissions reduction crusade that was failing. As reported in The Australian today, the official post-election advice to Energy Minister Chris Bowen was that, and I quote, "a further significant increase in electricity prices was likely." Well, no wonder the government tried to keep the advice secret and was only forced to release it in a very heavily redacted form by a resolution of the Senate.
Under pressure from Senator Dean Smith in the other place, Labor has finally released a secret government document which warns of a, quote, "further significant increase in retail electricity prices." It was also revealed that the clerk of the Senate called Labor's obfuscation, quote, "not acceptable." Why did this minister do everything he could to hide this document from the Australian public, instead of doing everything he could to reduce power prices by $275?
This is a government that's been consistently deceptive on power prices, notoriously promising almost 100 times to cut your power bill by $275 per household per year by 2025. In fact, you know, your bills have skyrocketed. Indeed, from mid-2022 to now, the rise in the essential energy default market offer for household consumers in New South Wales has risen by 31%. The Tomago smelter is now on death row because there's no reliable coal-fired power to bring prices down. And that's why the debate about net zero inside the coalition really matters. Unless someone stands up on this issue, unless someone's prepared to say this net zero emperor's got no clothes, well, Australia is then out the back door as a manufacturing country. We're gone as a place of heavy industry and blue-collar jobs. And if that happens, believe me, industry will be gone forever. And we will then hasten our slide into economic irrelevance.